When Joel Osteen, a well-known televangelist, broke the devastating news to his millions of followers.
When Joel Osteen, a well-known televangelist, broke the devastating news to his millions of followers, Joel Osteen preaches about your best life now. But his own empire is crumbling. The Hurricane Harvey disaster showed his true colors when he refused to help flood victims. The church shooting exposed dangerous security gaps. Financial records reveal they spend more on TV broadcasts than helping the poor. Other pastors say he's not even preaching Christianity anymore. Meanwhile, the sources close to the family say there's another crisis brewing that could end his ministry forever. Here's everything going wrong with Joel Osteen. Joel Osteen was born on March 5, 1963 in Houston, Texas. He wasn't born into an ordinary family. He was one of 6 children in a home built on faith and big dreams. His father, John Osteen, had once been a traditional Southern Baptist pastor. But that changed just 4 years before Joel was born. In 1959, John left behind the old ways and started something new. What would become Lakewood Church? The Osteen family wasn't just busy. They were focused. His mother, Dodie, stood right beside John through every high and low. Joel grew up watching his parents handle challenges with faith. When his sister Lisa was born in 1958 with severe disabilities, it shook the family. But it also became a turning point. John and Dodie leaned hard into faith healing, and that shift became the heartbeat of their church. Joel had siblings who followed different paths, but each played a role in the family's growing influence. Lisa would go on to become an associate pastor at Lakewood. His brother Paul became a vascular surgeon and also served as a missionary. Their lives were rooted in service shaped by early moments of hardship and deep belief. The story of Lakewood Church begins in the most unexpected way. In May 1959, on Mother's Day, John and Dodie opened the doors of a church inside an old feed store on the northeast side of Houston. It had just 234 seats. They called it Lakewood Baptist Church at first, but that name didn't stay long. The Baptist part was dropped and the church became a place for people who believed in miracles and healing. By the end of the 1970s, Lakewood had over 5,000 members. It had become a movement. Joel wasn't interested in preaching, at least not at first. He was quiet, even shy. In 1981, he graduated from Humble High School in the Houston area. He didn't stand out because of his voice or charisma. He stood out because he stayed behind the scenes. After high school, he went to Oral Roberts University in Oklahoma to study radio and television communications. But he didn't finish. After less than a year, he dropped out. It wasn't because he lacked direction. It was because he already knew what he wanted to do. In 1982, when Joel was just 19, he came back to Houston. He wasn't planning to preach. Instead, he focused on something very few churches at the time understood: television. He launched Lakewood's TV ministry from scratch. 1 local station, 1 national cable channel. That was the beginning. For the next 17 years, Joel poured himself into that work. He filmed, he edited, he even tracked what his father wore on stage. He made sure every broadcast looked perfect. He believed the church's message should be just as polished as anything on network TV. His choice to skip college and dive into media wasn't a failure. It was a setup. Joel helped make Lakewood Church a household name before ever stepping behind the pulpit. He stayed out of the spotlight, but he was shaping how the world saw Lakewood, 1 broadcast at a time. At home, Joel lived in a world full of faith. His parents were more than pastors. They were examples. In 1981, his mother, Dodie, was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The doctors gave up, but the family didn't. Dodie survived, and that moment became part of their message. Never stop believing. Prayer and positivity weren't just words. They were a way of life in the Osteen house. Even though Joel worked behind the camera, he was absorbing everything. He saw what worked. He saw how his father inspired people. Over time, he developed his own ideas, shaped not by seminary, but by editing hundreds of hours of sermons. He was learning without even realizing it. He never planned to preach. His father asked him many times, Each time, Joel said, "No, Daddy, you youth preacher." He used to say, "Who can preach better than you?" But something changed in January 1999. That month, Joel finally agreed to speak. On January 17th, he gave his first sermon. He was nervous. He spoke fast. He shared family stories and jokes. He just wanted to connect. He didn't know what was coming. Just 6 days later, his father passed away from a sudden heart attack. It was a shock. Joel's first sermon turned out to be the last one his father would ever hear. John's death left a hole in the church. Lakewood had over 6,000 members and no clear successor. Joel had no experience preaching, no theological degree, and no real training. But the people looked to him. And even though he was grieving, even though he never wanted the role, Joel stepped forward. On June 7, 1999, less than half a year after his father's passing, Joel Osteen was officially installed as Lakewood Church's senior pastor. He had only preached a handful of times, but something had clicked. People responded. The church began to grow fast. Within just 5 years, that crowd of 6,000 had more than tripled. By 2004, the church was pulling between 25,000 and 30,000 people every single week. Lakewood had become the biggest church in the entire country. That didn't happen by accident. Joel doubled the church's spending on TV airtime. He fought for better time slots in major cities. He put Lakewood's name on billboards. And he made sure his sermons were uplifting and easy to follow. That mix of hope, media, and message turned Lakewood into something much bigger than just a local church. It was on the move. The original 8,000-seat sanctuary couldn't keep up. So Joel started thinking big. He wasn't shy about it either. He said out loud that one day Lakewood might welcome 100,000 people every weekend. At the time, that sounded almost ridiculous. But looking at how fast things were growing, it didn't feel impossible. Then came the boldest move of all. In 2003, Lakewood signed a 30-year lease on the Compact Center that was the old home of the Houston Rockets, the same arena where NBA championships were once won. Lakewood paid $12 million for the lease with the option to extend it later for another 30 years at $22 million. But the real shock came with the renovation. The church committed to spending between $90 million and $95 million to completely transform the arena. In today's money, that's about $158 million. They didn't just slap on a few lights and call it a day. They tore the place apart. 5 new stories were added inside. Classrooms, media rooms, carpeting stretched 4 miles, indoor waterfalls. The place was rebuilt from the inside out. It took more than 15 months to finish. And in 2010, Lakewood bought the building outright for $7.5 million. Then came the big day. On July 16, 2005, Lakewood opened the doors to its brand new home. Every one of the 16,000 seats was full. Millions more watched from home. People who used to sit in that arena to watch basketball were now there to pray. Everything had changed. Attendance passed 40,000. TV viewers reached around 10 million across more than 100 countries. What had started as a small church in Northeast Houston was now a global powerhouse sitting in the middle of Greenway Plaza. But it wasn't just the building or the crowds. It was Joel's message. Replacing a watch battery. That's all. But standing behind the counter was Victoria, a young psychology student working at her mother's store. That one moment, April of 1985, would change everything. 2 years later, on April 4, 1987, they were married. At the time, Joel was still working quietly behind the scenes in his father's ministry. He wasn't on stage. He wasn't a celebrity. And Victoria, though raised in a home filled with faith, wasn't aiming for a life in the spotlight either. Her father was a NASA engineer who helped build the Saturn rocket. Her mother taught Sunday school. They were a family built on science and belief, structure, and faith. That simple meeting in a store led to a partnership that now touches millions. For nearly 40 years, Joel and Victoria have stood side by side, guiding Lakewood Church through both admiration and controversy. What began with a tiny watch battery turned into a movement watched around the world. Victoria's own journey is just as surprising. She was born in Huntsville, Alabama in 1961, but her family moved to Houston when she was only 2. Her father had taken a job at NASA. Her early life was shaped by quiet routines and steady church traditions. When she met Joel, she had no idea she'd become a leading voice in one of the biggest churches in America. At first, she kept things simple, helping with offerings, managing background tasks. But in 2003, she started something big, the Lakewood Church Women's Ministry. That small start turned into something that now reaches thousands every year. Over time, her presence on stage grew stronger. Her words broadcast across networks. Her image streamed into homes. Then came her book. In 2008, she released Love Your Life, which debuted at number 2 on the New York Times bestsellers list. Its first print run, a massive 750,000 copies. She went from clerk to co-pastor, from quiet helper to a key figure in American faith. And she did it with calm confidence. Joel and Victoria's children were born right into this growing whirlwind. Jonathan came first on April 20, 1995. Alexandra followed on November 98, 1998. As Lakewood's influence expanded, so did the spotlight on their kids. But both of them stepped into that space in their own way. Jonathan studied film at the University of Texas at Austin, graduating in 2017. Even before that, he was already leading worship. By 2016, he and Alexandra were performing together for crowds as large as 45,000. One of those nights was America's Night of Hope in San Francisco. Jonathan didn't stop at music. He also became a songwriter.